Hello. It is great to be here on Global Speaker Talk today. We are going to talk about my overcoming cancer 3 times from terminally. And this is for an audience of anyone that's been on the cancer journey or that is involved with a health issue and wants to take their empowerment back from a patient perspective. Okay, so let's get started. So I'm originally from Shreveport, Louisiana, in the USA, and my first career job was I started working in IT, and I traveled around the country installing large IT systems for big corporations. After a few years, I expanded out to go internationally. Okay, and I ended up in New Zealand, of all places, the little island country at the bottom of the world, right below Australia. And I was working IT down there. After about 4 or 5 years, I'm in the boxing gym, okay, and I meet some American guys in there, which was kind of a random thing. And let me tell you, I don't do boxing. I don't do any matches. I don't like to get hit in the face, but the training is good. So these guys are from Washington State, and they were training there, preparing for some matches. And I got to know their owner. He was a serial entrepreneur, and he had a kettle corn business that he did in his home state. Well, we discovered that they didn't have kettle corn in New Zealand. And so we did some research and we thought this would be a great thing to launch. So we started a weekend popcorn business and going out to the local markets. Fast forward 14 years, and we became the number 2 manufacturer in the country between 15 and 30 staff, supplying all of New Zealand, countries in Australasia, and the Middle East. Had a couple of factories, several popcorn lines, and more popcorn products than I could even name for you. Well, so I'm on top of the popcorn world, and things are going great. In 2019, in the spring, I started limping around my factory. After I went to the doctor a few times, and they told me that I had a torn butt muscle. Well, I had to go into the hospital for some blood work, totally unrelated. And the hematologist said, Trent, we're going to get an x-ray today. I didn't think anything of it. Well, a week later, if you've ever gotten this call, you know I got the call that changed my life. And that was that I had aggressive hip bone cancer, and I had about that much bone holding on my leg. Every step that I took, I was in danger of breaking my leg. So it was straight into the hospital. And then we were inducted into the public healthcare machine. And public healthcare is good, but you also realize that anything that the government is involved in, it's slow. And the same thing with the healthcare, right? So this is kind of what happened. We tried about several times, and they would make the implant. And a couple months later, they're going to put the thing in. Well, it wouldn't fit because the cancer had progressed. So the third time, they said, okay, Trent, it's progressed too far, and we're going to cut your leg off. Well, obviously, I lost my composure. And thankfully, my parents were on the phone, and my dad stepped in and he just said, look, this guy's a fighter. He's not a quitter. And you leave that leg, and he'll make it work somehow. Now, this is one of my little nuggets that I like to give people. Okay, if you're going in to talk to the doctor about something serious, you should take someone with you that is practical, that can remember what you talked about. Because a lot of times you have these life and death conversations, or for me, a limb or no limb, and you won't remember anything. So take someone with you. Right. So back to it. So I got the surgery, and the surgery was successful. But I contracted an infection. I had about 6 more surgeries to try to get rid of the infection and IV antibiotics, but it didn't work. We got the cancer, which was good. And to give you an idea, okay, this is what it looked like. So this is my pelvis. This is my pelvis area, right? And you can see right here that the whole left side of my hip is gone, right? And so just to give you another little sample, this is a 3D image of my actual pelvis, okay? And you can see that here we have the right side, the left side is gone, okay? And just to kind of give you a full 3D idea of what's going on. Okay, So, we got out of the hospital and, back to life. So my parents went home. The next scan, no, you have lung and pancreatic cancer. Well, pancreatic cancer is the most serious of the two. When you get diagnosed with that, you have less than a 5% chance with treatment. Okay. So COVID had hit and they locked us down. And no one in the hospital visited. It was very lonely, very quiet time. Well, we had the surgery and it was successful, but it was a bittersweet outcome. The reason was it was sweet because I actually didn't have cancer. So that was good. But the bitter part was that they removed half of my pancreas and my spleen as a misdiagnosis. It ended up being a blood clot in the end. So here's another little nugget for you, right? In situations like this, it's better to try to fight the problem and not the person, right? So I had focused my energy towards my problem. And the problem was that I had to deal with this lung cancer, right? So on to that. Moved to that. We had the lung surgery and that was successful. But I also contracted an infection in that. And I still had the hip infection. So one thing that I didn't show you was on this last slide, okay, there's a little wire right here that they put in. That kept the leg from moving upwards. Okay. Right. So when I had the lung surgery, the orthopedic found out I was in the hospital. And he came in and he said, look, we're going to do surgery. We're going to remove that wire because it's causing the infection. Well, a junior surgeon did the operation and he botched it up pretty bad. So it caused a surgical hernia, which meant part of my intestines were hanging out over my waistline that eventually healed up and grew over, which was a miracle. Caused bladder issues where I frequently have to go to the bathroom and I'm up and down several times a night. And then what happened was, since the leg moved upwards, right? So you can see that from here, okay, all the way up. So the leg ended up here. That's about 100 millimeters, okay, or over 4 inches. And to give you an idea, this is the size shoe that I would wear. And just to let you know, that would be a platform shoe, and it's a platform croc. Years ago when the kids used to wear the platform shoes, I'm the guy that started that fad, and I made millions of dollars off that. Not really, not really. Okay, so out of the hospital and back to life. Well, the next thing, we had the next scan. No, this time you really, really do have pancreas cancer. And so I asked for a biopsy this time because last time they wouldn't, and with the misdiagnosis. So it took a couple months to get the biopsy scheduled, see the doctor again, get the results and everything. When they found the tumor originally on the pancreas, it was this big, okay? Just the size of a couple little coins on its side. After 4 months, it had grown to the size of a tennis ball. The latest scan showed that it was growing into my stomach. I was having trouble eating. I was getting skinny. I would look in the mirror. I could tell I was dying. So I decided I would go to a private radiologist. He read the scans and he said, look, Trent, there's nothing we can do about this. There's no options. And I said, well, doc, I know with there's less than a 5% chance with treatment. And you're telling me to go home without treatment. And he said, yeah, there's nothing I can do. And I said, so I'm going home to wait to die. And he said, there's nothing I can do. That was a tough day. But it was a good day and it was a bad day because it pushed me into a turning point. So I had another appointment with the public doctor that had done the previous pancreas surgery. And I went into him and I saw him and he basically said the same thing. And later I talked to my parents on the phone. And you know what? The hopelessness and the despair that I heard in my parents' voice, I made a decision. And I thought back to the conversation that my dad had with the doctor, that I'm a fighter, I'm not a quitter, and I'm going to make this work. So at that point, I made a decision. And I had some tragedy in my life previously. About 6 months before I got cancer, a friend of mine took his own life. And then about a year before I had cancer, a really good friend He died of cancer and left his wife and kids. And I was just tired of watching sad parents bury their children. And I decided I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to find a way to beat this. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So I've been told by about 5 surgeons. Oh yeah. I've been told by about 5 surgeons that I was gonna that I wouldn't make it, and I gave me a year to live. So I decided to come home and be with my parents. They live in Northwest Arkansas, and so I decided, after my research, that they had good health care here. It was a good place to start on your home front and fight this from home. So I went into the local guy, and he said, "Look, it is serious, but we have some pretty good machinery here, and I think we can get this thing, Trent." And so what we did is we radiated, we zapped the thing. And by the time they did the surgery, by the time they did the radiation, it was the size of a softball. So we got the thing and we zapped it. And for any of those softball players out there, I'm sorry that there's one less softball in the world, but at least I'm still here. Okay. Right. So after that, we did some immunotherapy, and to prevent anything from spreading metastatically like it had done in New Zealand. Next was the infection, right? And so we went through that, and I did about 3 months of IV antibiotics. Made me very, very sick. Most people only do 2 months, but I did 3, and we found some antibiotics that would work, and we got the infection. So the next thing was that I wanted to walk again, because in New Zealand they had told me that you will never walk again. You will be on crutches or a wheelchair for the rest of your life. But I had the desire that I was going to get off the crutches. So I was seeing doctors all around the country and going to appointments, and I kept getting denied. It was either you had an infection, or, with there's just no real estate to put anything there. So you just are where you are, Trent. Well, through my Arkansas network of doctors, I found a guy at Mayo Clinic that specializes in knees and hips that no one in the world would even attempt or do. This guy has done about 10 surgeries on people. And so we embarked on the largest, most complex hip implant that's ever been done to date. And I'm in the middle of a 3-part surgery over several months, could be years, but we're getting there. So the first surgery was a preparatory surgery. And I recently, about a year ago, I had the implant. And so to give you an idea, this is what a normal implant would look like. Okay, you can see the implant part right here. Okay, now this is what my hip looks like. This is currently in. Okay, and you can see all the implant. These are the screws that go all the way across to the other side of my pelvis. I have screws in my spine. I have rods, etc. These are procedures that have never been done before. They've never happened. And so basically, this is a engineering project feat that's been done on a human. So this is kind of how this is the $1 million implant piece right here. And it fits together in here kind of like this. Now you can see that this would be the lower end, okay, where my hip normally is. And this is where the top end is. So we didn't quite get all the length back. And there is an optional surgery down the road that I can do. What it did give me is that much length back. So I've got some functionality, I've got balance, and I've got a lot back. And I still can, and I will be walking very soon, even without the additional length. But if I want to down the future, okay, down the road, I can do a bone lengthening procedure where they extend the femur. And then I would get all the length back. So let's move into kind of the framework of all the things that I thought that I needed to tackle to deal with this cancer. And so I have a little weird kind of silly acrostic just to make you remember it. Has nothing to do with it. And it's what I call the MS Web. MS Web. Okay. It's not MS for Microsoft, and it has nothing to do with the internet, not the web or anything. And so here are the points that encompass a human being, right? And I think that you have to look at all 5 of these things. And if you want to make a change, you have to make a change in all these areas. So it is M for mind, S for spirit, W for will, E for emotions, and B for body. So let's start with the will. Okay, what do you want? Well, I decided what I wanted. And my reason was I didn't want to die on my parents. When those days get hard, right, you got to go back and you got to remember your why. Your why will help you continue to get to your goal. Now, in no particular order, let's move on to the body, right? So with that, it was diet and exercise. So with my diet, I changed some things. And those were, I cut out all processed sugar, no empty calories, no empty carbs, no alcohol. And I just had a balanced diet, and I made smart decisions and quit fast food and things like that. I lost 40 pounds in 8 months doing that. Now on to the exercise. The reason I was wearing Crocs is because I couldn't even touch my toes. So I just needed shoes to slip on and off. But I started with a couple of minutes of yoga a day. And we moved on and we moved up to that. And then we got to where I could do about an hour of yoga at a time. Then we moved into the weights because I knew if I wanted to walk again, what I was going to have to do is I was going to have to get this leg in shape. It was basically like a toothpick. You know, I had withered away over 2 years. And by the way, I had been on crutches for I've been on crutches for 5 years. That's longer than somebody goes to college. Well, most people, right? So I began exercising and getting ready. And I knew that I needed to train this leg and be ready for big surgeries and everything. And so, you know, I got ready in that regard. Now, the mindset, that's probably the toughest thing that I dealt with. Now, how did I tackle that? You know, I had a 95% chance of dying, or I had 5 chances to make it. So 5 chances is good because you only need one and you only have one life. So I began to look at examples of people on the internet and find, you know, inspirational stories of an older guy that had pancreas cancer, that had radiation. And my thought was, if he can do it, so can I. Also, I went into things like I got into meditation. And one of the meditations that really helped me was a meditation called Leaves on the River. Basically, your problem turns into, you put your problem in the leaf and it flows down the river. There's no drama. There's no issue. It's nothing major. It just goes away. And at the end of my river is Niagara Falls. And that cancer falls over into that and it is overcome, right? Let's see. Some of the other things that I had to do with my mind, visualization and manifesting, right? So at night, when I was going to bed, the last thing I was thinking about is the doctor telling me, you're going to beat the cancer, Trent. You're going to hear the words, no more cancer. So, and then another thing is, you know, during the radiation, you go in, and if you ever know anybody that's had radiation, the thing is when you're done, you ring the bell. And I remember ringing that bell thinking, I have beat this cancer and it is over. You know, and one of the other things I had to do is you got to cut out negative things. So I quit listening to the news, and that included some friendships, right? That I had to distance myself from some people that were negative. Moving on to the spiritual side. So I'll tell you what, if you think you're going to go to heaven, you start talking to God, right? And so, you know, my relationship with God got stronger. I was going to church. I was doing what I needed to do. And let's see here. Let's see. Yep, doing what I needed to do. And I had the power of prayer. So I started using my friends and family, and they were praying for me. There's a lot to that. I started listening to miracle sermons, and I would put myself in that situation where, you know, if a miracle can happen then, it can happen now. Christian music, I used that to flood my environment, and I was listening to something positive. Always something positive in my life. So let's move on to the emotions, and those are your feelings, right? And what I did is I tried to keep my feelings in balance, and I would evaluate things in a business kind of situation and just try to do the facts. And I know that's a little hard, but you know what? Here's the thing, right? Your feelings begin to change, and you know if you have saturated yourself, because in the middle of the night, you will wake up and you will be thinking, or you will be dreaming, or you will be talking about something that you've been listening to. And I would just listen to something over and over and over that resonated with me. So I have a few analogies for you, right? I have my hope deck of cards. So people would ask me, Trent, are you going to die? You know, are you afraid that you're going to get cancer again? And I'm like, no, because I've already played those cards. There's only 52 cards in the deck. If I played that card, I can't get it again. So hopefully when I go in to grab another card, I'm getting a good card. and I'm going to play a better hand because I've already beaten those bad hands. Another analogy that I like to use is, the most popular game in the U.S. is football, American gridiron. And I put myself on the field. I'm the quarterback. It was heavy, very heavy with this game of life and death, right? So, I'm on the field. Cancer's my opponent. I'm the quarterback. I make all the decisions. My teammates are my friends. My coaches are my counselor, my doctors. And, you try to get yardage on every play. You're only concerned about this play, not the one you just had, not the one that you're going to. This one right here. And you know what? Sometimes you don't make yardage. Sometimes you lose. Maybe you need a timeout to go over and talk to the coach. But if you put enough positive plays together, you get to those touchdowns, just like I've done. And so, that's basically it, guys. I've only got a few minutes, and that's basically, the framework that I used, and I touched on all those things. I really, there's some other things that I would talk about involving, patient empowerment and things like that. I do speaking and people coaching people on the cancer journey, and we dive into these things a lot more. If you're interested in me speaking, I can do an in-person thing or something virtually. And I can focus, if it was something related to a church or religious organization, I'd focus more on the miracles and some of the things and the encounters that I had. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't be here, okay? And, I'm a walking miracle. So I want to thank you and appreciate your time, and thank you for listening to me. You can contact me at trentbrock@yahoo.com, or you can join me on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and also LinkedIn. You will see me doing the victory pose wearing my faith over fear shirt. Thank you.